Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're looking at building design.
Okay.
Specifically, the phases as outlined by the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada.
Sounds good.
So we're working from excerpts from a document, potentially titled Texto Colado.
Interesting.
So by the end of this deep dive,
Okay.
you'll understand not only each phase, but you'll also understand why this structure exists in the first place.
Right.
And maybe even have a few aha moments along the way.
That's the goal.
So we'll start with pre-design.
Okay.
And, it might sound like the just getting things ready stage, but it's so much more than that.
Right.
It's really the foundation for the skyscraper, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you a sense,
Okay.
a lot of people don't realize that a good, thorough pre-design can reduce change orders during construction by like 50%.
50%.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's huge in terms of savings,
Yeah.
delays, stress for everybody.
That makes a lot of sense. So during pre-design, it's about defining the project objectives right.
Oh, absolutely.
Making sure everybody is on the same page.
Yeah, and it's meticulously selecting the site, understanding existing assets or constraints,
Right.
and figuring out how to get all the resources together.
So it's really like assembling the team,
It is.
the Avengers of building design.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I know that the RAIC emphasizes client preparedness during pre-design. Is that something that you see actually happening in the real world?
Definitely. I mean, you have clients that come super prepared with like in-depth capital planning and analysis,
Okay.
ready to go.
Wow.
And then you have others who need a little bit more guidance
Right.
to understand, how to maximize this phase.
Yeah, so it really runs the gamut.
It does.
So pre-design really is like that crucial brainstorming session
It is.
where you hash out all the big questions
Yep.
before even picking up a pencil.
Exactly.
No wonder skipping it can lead to so many headaches later on. Okay, so now let's move on from pre-design
Okay.
to schematic design.
Right.
And this is where I think things start to get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because this is where the ideas take shape
Uh-huh.
and the client's vision starts to materialize.
Yeah.
It's like capturing lightning in a bottle,
It is.
trying to get that intangible essence of what the client wants
Right.
and turn that into a physical form.
And that's where the architect steps in as the creative synthesizer.
Okay.
Skillfully balancing site characteristics, space planning needs the client's image goals for the building and then their own design approach.
It sounds like a lot to juggle.
It is. It's a delicate dance.
Yeah.
For sure.
And this really highlights how important it is to have that well-defined design brief
Yeah.
or functional program from the pre-design phase.
Absolutely.
So without that, the architect's kind of designing in the dark.
Exactly.
So when we talk about site character, what are some of the key elements that an architect considers?
Well, it's not just about the physical features like topography or the soil conditions.
Right.
It's about understanding the neighborhood, the surrounding landscape. How does the sun hit the site?
Yeah.
Wind, and even zoning regulations.
So it's almost like the site itself has a personality.
You could say that.
Okay.
And then you've got space planning, which dives into like how the building will be used.
Okay.
And that's where the functional program comes in.
Sure.
So their needs, their desires for the space, room sizes, circulation paths, adjacencies, and accessibility requirements.
It's about creating a space that flows.
Exactly.
And really supports the activities
Yep.
that are going to happen there.
Yeah, and then you have the client's image goals.
Okay.
So you know their aspirations for how the building looks and feels.
So do they want a sleek, modern structure or something a little more traditional and inviting?
That's a great question. And, this is a subjective part of the process, but it's so important to make sure that the final design really resonates with their vision.
I can imagine that's where things can get a little tricky.
Oh, for sure.
Trying to marry the client's vision with the realities of the site and the budget.
And that's where the architect's own design approach comes in.
Right.
So they bring their unique style and experience and creative problem-solving skills.
So it's a real collaboration
Yeah.
back and forth between the client and the architect.
Absolutely. And throughout schematic design, they're testing different planning and massing options,
Okay.
always keeping the budget in mind.
So it's an iterative process.
It is.
Exploration, refinement,
Yep.
finding the best solution.
Exactly. And once those pieces start falling into place in schematic design,
Okay.
we move on to design development.
Right.
And that's where we really start to flesh out the how of the building.
And I know there's some pretty fascinating advancements that are having an impact on this phase, like building information modeling.
BIM.
BIM, right? Or integrated design process or integrated project delivery.
IDP and IPD.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit more about these?
Yeah, so these innovations are really changing things in the world of building design.
Okay.
So for instance, BIM allows us to create a virtual 3D model
Okay.
of the building, incorporating all the information from all the different players.
So architects, engineers, contractors?
Exactly.
Wow.
And this not only helps us to visualize the design more effectively, but it helps us to identify potential problems early on.
So it's like a high-tech blueprint on steroids.
That's one way to put it. And because BIM allows us to work out so many of the details in the early stages, it actually shifts some traditionally designed development work into the schematic design phase.
So projects are becoming more front-loaded?
Exactly. So more design decisions are made earlier on,
Okay.
which leads to a much more efficient workflow.
And this front-loading is also driven by the increasing adoption of IDP and IPD.
Right?
Now, I have to admit those acronyms sound a little intimidating.
Sure.
Can you break those down for us?
Absolutely. So IDP integrated design process focuses on collaboration. It brings all the key players together from the beginning.
So architects, engineers, contractors,
Mm-hmm.
even the client.
Everybody
Wow.
to work collaboratively.
So it's like building team spirit from the very beginning.
Yeah, and IPD takes that collaboration a step further.
Okay.
It's actually a contractual framework that aligns the incentives of all the key players.
So they're encouraged to work together towards common goals.
Exactly, like cost, schedule, and quality.
So it's about sharing both the risks and the rewards.
Exactly. And now with all these advancements blurring the lines
Right.
between schematic design and design development, it's more important than ever to have really clear communication, clearly defined deliverables,
Right.
and clients sign off at all the key stages.
It's like navigating a roundabout. You need to know where you're going
That's a great analogy.
and when to exit, or you're going to get stuck in a loop.
Yeah, you'll be going around forever.
And speaking of clear communication,
Okay.
I know we talked earlier about the different interpretations of the term design.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. So architects often use design to refer to the visual and 3D representations of a project.
Right.
But engineers and some clients might use it to encompass construction documents
Okay.
or even preliminary designs. So this can be confusing if everyone isn't on the same page.
So it's like speaking different dialects
It is.
of the same language.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
It's a reminder that clear and consistent communication is so crucial for successful collaboration.
Okay. So with the design now well defined and everybody speaking the same language, we'll move on to the construction documents phase.
Right.
And this is where those designs are translated into detailed instructions for the builders.
Right.
So it's really like creating that comprehensive instruction manual
It is.
for building that architectural masterpiece.
So the client's objectives in terms of the budget,
Okay.
the time frame, the sustainability goals are all translated into these detailed drawings and specifications.
So these construction documents are really essential for making sure the building is constructed according to plan
Absolutely.
and meets all the necessary standards and regulations.
Yep.
So they're really the blueprint for turning that vision into reality.
They are. And these documents are not only crucial for guiding the construction process,
Okay.
but they're also a vital role in contract administration.
Okay. How so?
They serve as that primary reference point for evaluating the quality of the work and making sure that everything conforms to the design.
So they're like the rule book for the construction game.
Exactly.
No room for ambiguity here.
Right. Clarity, transparency, and unambiguity are super important in construction documents to minimize disagreements and potential disputes.
And I imagine these also form the basis for obtaining construction permits from the authorities.
They do,
Okay.
making sure that the project complies with all the applicable building codes and regulations.
So it's all about setting the stage for a smooth construction process.
It is. And speaking of the construction process, that brings us to the next phase,
Okay.
construction procurement. And this is where we find the team to bring those blueprints to life.
So we're selecting the contractor who will be responsible for building the thing.
Exactly. And this phase is not just about picking a name out of a hat.
Right.
Construction procurement is super regulated, and you have to follow established tendering practices.
I imagine if you deviate from that, you could run into some legal issues.
Absolutely. So navigating the legalities is critical here.
So it's not just about finding somebody who can build, it's about finding somebody who can build legally.
Right. So there's specific steps involved,
Okay.
starting with planning the procurement method.
And this involves choosing the most appropriate approach for selecting the contractor.
Right, and there are a lot of factors to consider.
Project complexity, budget, time constraints.
Exactly, and some common methods are like open tendering,
Okay.
where any qualified contractor can submit a bid, or selective tendering, where only a short list of pre-qualified contractors are invited.
So you're not just looking for the lowest bidder.
No.
You're looking for the bidder who best fits the project needs.
Right, and once the procurement method is determined, the next step is pre-qualifying bidders,
Okay.
which means we're evaluating them
Based on?
experience, financial stability, track record.
So it's like a vetting process to weed out any unqualified candidates.
Exactly. Then comes the tender itself, where the pre-qualified contractors submit their bids.
Okay.
And this is a detailed proposal,
Right.
outlining their approach, costs, time frame.
It sounds like contractors must invest a lot of resources in preparing these bids.
They do, which is why fairness and transparency are so important
Right.
throughout the process.
Making sure everybody is treated equally
Exactly.
and that the selection is based on merit.
Right, and the best interests of the project.
Yep.
So it's about building trust and establishing a foundation for a good working relationship. And once the bids are in, the next step is evaluating them.
Okay, so this is where the client and the architect work together to compare bids.
According to the criteria.
And this could be cost, experience, methodology, adherence to the project requirements.
All of that.
It's like judging a competition where
Right.
every detail matters.
Exactly. And then after careful deliberation, the winning bid is selected and the contract is awarded.
So this marks the official beginning of the contractor's involvement.
It does.
So it's like passing the torch from the design team to the construction team.
You got it. And once the contractor's on board,
Yeah.
we enter the construction contract administration phase.
Okay.
And this is where things shift from paper to reality.
Right. The contractor takes charge of the actual building.
Exactly. And this phase can be complex.
Yeah, I imagine it requires a lot of oversight
That does.
and coordination.
And, while it might seem like it's only the contractor's job, the architect still plays a critical role. They're acting as the client's representative and supporting both the client and the contractor.
So it's like being the mediator.
In a way, it is, and their specific responsibilities will vary depending on the project delivery method.
Okay.
But one thing remains constant:
What's that?
their regulatory obligation to ensure that the work conforms to the contract documents.
So making sure that the building is built according to the approved design.
Exactly, and that it meets all the codes and regulations.
And fulfills the vision for the project.
That's right, and you might be thinking, okay, the building's up, we're done.
Right. I would think so.
But we're not quite there yet.
There's more.
Oh yeah, we've reached the grand finale.
Okay.
The last act of our building design adventure. And this is the phase that I think often gets overlooked
Okay.
or undervalued, but it's so crucial.
What is it?
It's takeover commissioning and post-occupancy evaluation.
Takeover commissioning.
Post-occupancy evaluation.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's basically everything from ensuring a smooth transition from construction to occupancy,
Okay.
to gathering feedback to improve things moving forward.
So it's like a final quality check and celebration.
Yeah, and even with a perfect design and flawless construction, a poor handover can leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
I can imagine.
It's like finishing a marathon and tripping right before the finish line.
So let's break this final phase down.
Okay.
What exactly are takeover procedures?
So that's the formal transfer of responsibility from the contractor to the client.
Okay.
It involves a very thorough inspection of the work,
Okay.
verification that all the systems are operational, and then handing over all those key documents.
So as-built drawings, operation manuals, warranty information.
Yep, all of that.
So it's like handing over the keys to the kingdom, but with a lot more paperwork.
Exactly. Then comes commissioning.
Okay.
And that's where we systematically verify that all the building systems are functioning as they should.
So we're testing everything.
Everything.
The HVAC, electrical, plumbing, fire protection.
Yep. All of it.
So we're not just hoping for the best here.
Definitely not commissioning. Is about making sure every single system is operating at peak performance
Okay.
and meets that design intent.
It sounds critical, especially in modern buildings with all these complex systems.
It is. And then finally, we have post-occupancy evaluation,
Okay.
which is really a feedback mechanism
Right.
to see how the building performs in real life.
So you go back to the occupants
We do.
and you get their feedback.
We do surveys, focus
Yeah.
groups. We even look at energy consumption.
So you're really trying to get a holistic view of how the building is performing.
Exactly. And then use that information to inform future designs.
So it's a continuous improvement cycle,
It is.
learning from experience.
And if you ignore this final phase, it can lead to unresolved issues,
Right.
problems down the road, and even litigation.
So it's really about tying up all the loose ends.
It is making sure that transition from construction to occupancy is smooth and then setting the building up for success.
So it's like putting the final touches on that masterpiece.
Exactly.
And ensuring it stands the test of time.
Precisely.
Wow, this has been an incredible journey through building design.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground from the initial vision to the final handover, and it's so clear that each of these phases plays a vital role in a successful project.
I think it really speaks to the complexity and collaborative nature of this whole process.
It does. And before we move on to part 2, let's just do a quick recap
Okay.
of the key insights we've gleaned so far.
Sure.
So pre-design is crucial
Absolutely.
for setting the project up for success.
Skipping it or rushing through it can be costly.
And then during schematic design, it's all about finding that balance.
It is.
Between the client's vision,
Right.
the site, and the architect's approach.
Exactly. And as technology keeps advancing,
Right.
we're seeing that shift to more front-loaded projects.
With BIM, IDP, and IPD.
Yep, playing an even more important role.
And of course, communication is key.
It is.
Especially when it comes to something like defining what design means.
Yeah, absolutely. And that final phase?
Takeover commissioning post-occupancy evaluation.
Yeah.
That's crucial for ensuring a smooth handover.
There it is.
And gathering feedback for future improvements.
It's like the grand finale of the architectural symphony.
Making sure everybody is playing in harmony.
And leaving the audience wanting more.
So stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll go even deeper into the nuances of each phase
Okay.
and look at some real-world examples.
Sounds great.